recording this meeting for folks that could not attend tonight, and let's get started. So like I said, feel free to put questions in the chat. I don't see any questions right now. I'm gonna keep my eyes on my waiting room here, and let's get started. So tonight I want to, can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up. Fantastic. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a little bit about the company EF Tours that we are going to be going on this trip with. So let's get into it here. Oh, look at this. We already did this. I'm going to try to keep it to about 30 minutes. I'm a bit of a talker if you've ever been to any of these meetings before, or wherever else I am. I generally talk a lot. So I'm going to keep my eye on the clock as well and try to respect your time and keep it at about 30 minutes. There will be an enrollment link to follow after this if you are interested in enrolling, and we're going to talk about pricing and some money off and all of that stuff at the end. And then you can submit your questions on the sign-in form below. So that's the link that I put in the chat there, that little bit.ly, and you can submit any questions that you have, and EF Tours will contact you with the answer. So tonight, what we're going to cover, safety and our EF partnership. As I mentioned, we are partnering with EF for this tour, but we're also going this summer to Costa Rica, Italy, Greece, next summer to Japan. I went with EF Tours over the wintertime to France. So I got to see firsthand what this company is like, and it was delightful, if I must say so myself. So we're going to talk a little bit about EF, of course, the impact of travel and what it means to travel in this day and age, what we're going to be doing on our trip. So if you come with us in 2024 to the Galapagos, what does that entail? Everything that it's included and what's not. And making it happen, which, as I mentioned, are the price points for this trip. And then any sort of money that we can get off tonight or by the end of the month, or fundraise for, and how to enroll. That's the last thing we're going to chat about. So, as I mentioned, I'm Liz. I have done some traveling in the past. I love the tropics. Obviously, living in Syracuse, New York, it's a really great opportunity to get out and go to the beach during the wintertime. So I have done that in the past. Went to Ireland on my honeymoon, which was super cold and rainy. Probably should have picked a tropical island instead, but it was cool. I've been to Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Mexico, and of course, Canada, our friendly neighbors to the north. This summer, I'm headed to Italy and Greece, and I'm bringing 16 Girl Scouts and their moms with me. So I'm a little bit nervous about it. It'll be my first international trip. I think it's going to be amazing. But by the time we get to 2024 into the Galapagos, I'm going to be like an expert at this. So you're in for a good trip by the time we get to 2024. I lived in Texas for a year. I actually worked with AmeriCorps, and I lived a little bit southwest of Austin. And that was a bit of a culture shock, but I loved it. So I've done a little bit of domestic travel, and Galapagos is actually a bucket list trip for me because I worked at the zoo in Syracuse for 10 years. So I have gotten an opportunity to see some of these animals that we're going to be talking about tonight, and the ecosystem. You know, being a scientist at heart, this trip is really something that I'm really looking forward to. So if you've got animals and science and the tropics on your brain, this trip might be for you. Here's just some random pictures of me in various places. So why are we planning for 2024? You say it's 2022 and I can't even remember what we're having for dinner tomorrow night. Neither can I. However, it's a really good time to plan for 2024 for a couple of different reasons. First of all, it's something to look forward to. Like I said, this trip is going to be amazing. We're going to see all sorts of awesome animals, which I have pictures of. We're going to spend some time in the tropics, which is really good for your skin, the humidity in your hair, and just your general disposition because it's sunny and warm there. So I love that kind of climate. And if you're into it, this is a great trip for that. A chance to reconnect with the world. I know that a lot of us have felt a little bit isolated, you know, myself included, over the last 2 years. We haven't been able to do the same things that we've been able to do just forever. And it's been a little bit weird, honestly. So this is a really great way to reconnect to the world and to know that there are other people out there who are in the same boat, as we are. So it'll be great to experience a different culture in a time when the world seems so isolating. Another great thing about traveling in 2024 is that we can spread the payments over a longer period of time. And I have a slide later on in this presentation that will talk about what that's going to look like. Lastly, if you participate in cookie sales or treats, reads, and more, there's 4 opportunities between now and the trip to participate in these things. So it's a great opportunity. This past cookie season, I started travel troops, and there were girls who are going to Japan in 2023 who sold cookies for that trip. And they did pretty well. I find that when you make a big sign and say, you know, I'm going to Japan, or I'm going to the Galapagos, I'm going to this place, and buying cookies for me is going to help me get there, people will buy cookies, and they'll buy a lot of cookies. So there's a little bit of an opportunity for you if you choose to participate in the product sales with the council for you to do that before this trip. All right. So let's talk a little bit about EF. This is a picture from South Africa, and that's a trip that, oh my gosh, sometime in the future, maybe it would be super cool to put on the list of places to go. But EF Tours, you may have heard of them before. There's a couple of different kinds of companies like this out in the world. EF is just one of them. And we've chosen to work with EF because they have a really great track record. They have decades of experience sending people all over the world. They have offices all over the place. The closest one to us is in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They have over 50,000 employees, and they have people in the countries that we go to that can tell us the best practices for the places that we're going. Number 1, in safety. I can say that, you can read that quote over there on your own. I can say that my experience with trips so far, and just experience with our manager, Audra, her name is, I think you probably got some emails from her earlier today. They have been great to work with. They provide us with a personal tour director. There's real-time safety and incident response team should someone have or get COVID while we're on the trip. Hopefully it's in 2024, so it'll be just not a thing anymore. Fingers crossed. I know we all said that in 2020, but really, like 2024, let's keep our fingers crossed. They have a great COVID policy. They have a great emergency policy. There's trip insurance that you can purchase that covers most of these things. If something happens, just as an example, which I thought was really cool, this trip that I'm going on in the summertime, if one of the kiddos gets COVID or tests positive for COVID and has to quarantine in Greece, before we come back, they will fly their parents over so that they don't have to quarantine by themselves. EF Tours will absorb the cost. They'll fly mom or dad or grandma or whoever over to Greece. They'll cover airfare and hotels and meals. They'll cover everything so that that kiddo does not have to quarantine by themselves. I will be there, obviously, quarantining with them, but I'm also like some rando from NYPENN Pathways. I'm not your mom or your dad or somebody that knows you. And it can be a little bit scary. So I thought that was just really cool of EF that they would do something like that. So they really and truly do have our backs when we go on these trips, which is a reason why we continue to do business with them. We also provide chaperones. So for example, I'm a chaperone and I hope to be a chaperone on the Galapagos trip as well. And then for every 6 travelers that we enroll, we have more chaperones added. So we are making sure that everyone is supervised, everyone has what they need. You know, if you require medications, we've got that covered. If you have dietary issues, we've got that covered. Having chaperones for every 6 folks makes sure that we're paying attention to you individually while we're on this trip as well. And then they do support our specific organizational policies. And, you know, Girl Scouts has all the things, safety activity checkpoints and the Blue Book and all the things that Girl Scouts do and make sure. This past week, I had to go through a background check because I'm an adult traveling on a tour with girls. So just like the Girl Scouts do, you know, I got the background check and all the offender registries and all that. And so will every single adult on the tour, not just chaperones, but all adults, which is great. So there's a peace of mind policy. It's pretty long. I didn't link to it in this presentation because you can certainly go onto the EF website and check it out yourself if you want to. If something happens, COVID happened and we were supposed to go to Italy and Greece and we had to postpone. they price matched for us. So our people, even though it's 2 years later, they didn't have to pay more money to go on a trip that was canceled for 2 years because of COVID. There's flexibility if we, if people start dropping out or if dates change, we can change the destination, we can change the dates. It's just super flexible. And then, as I mentioned, there's a global travel protection that's included as well. And you can read about that on the website if you choose to. So you probably, you're here, so you know how important travel can be in a girl's life. I didn't really travel when I was young outside the country. I mostly went to like Civil War battlefields because my dad was super into history. So that's where we went, and I loved it. Well, I guess looking back on it, I remember like family trips to Gettysburg maybe were, when you're in 8th grade, you're like, why? But I look back on it now and I realized it was a great time. And I can't wait to take my own kids to places like that too. When we go outside the country, especially to a place like Ecuador and the Galapagos, there's a certain amount of cultural competence and confidence that you get in traveling to a country where you don't speak the language. You might not have ever tried the food that you're going to be trying. And you certainly won't experience some of the animals and some of the tours and things like that that we are going to experience on this trip. So there's nothing better, I think, in this world than getting a chance to travel to other cultures. You all are in Girl Scouts for the leadership part of what we do and also self-discovery. It can be stressful to go on a trip. Even if your mom's there, sometimes that can be part of the stress, right? So there's a lot of self-discovery that I think will take place with folks that go on these trips. You can discover good things and bad things about yourself when you're put into a situation where you don't really necessarily know what's going to happen. So I just love that thought of learning a little bit more about your own self while we're on these trips. EF Tours also provides educational resources. So we will provide you with a field journal. What a great trip to take a field journal on when we're exploring Darwin, and all the scientific discoveries and hypotheses that Charles Darwin made on his trip to the Galapagos in the 1800s. He kept lots of journals and wrote lots of books. So how perfect is that? Also, through these trips, you can get high school and college credit. There's more about that on EF's website if you are interested in that. And of course, something like this looks great on a college application. I know that I struggled in writing my essay to get into college, and something like this, an experience like this, would make for a great essay for admissions to college. So let's talk about the trip, right? You're sick of hearing me talk about all the things that don't really apply to the meat of this. But here it is. Let's go. We're going to Ecuador and the Galapagos. So our itinerary is to fly into Quito, which is the capital of Ecuador. We'll spend some time in Quito, and then we're going to hop on a boat and go to the Galapagos Islands. And so you see on the screen there, some of the islands that we'll be visiting. And I do have some pictures. If you want to drop in the chat as we go through this, tell me what you're excited about. Why are you in this meeting tonight? What about the Galapagos said to you, oh my gosh, I want to go on that trip? Feel free to put it in the chat. And we'll talk about these as we go through our pictures, okay? So as I mentioned, we're flying into Quito, spending 3 nights there, and then taking a boat to San Cristobal Island, Santa Cruz Island, and Isabela Island. And you can see one of my favorites that I'm excited about is that little marine iguana that's chilling there on the rock. They are the ones that swim in the water and eat all the algae and stuff off the rocks. And I just think they're super cute. I know people don't generally say that about lizards, but here we are, right? So in Quito, what we're going to be doing is exploring the city, with our tour director. So as soon as we land, we will meet our tour director who will be with us on the entire trip. This person is someone who lives there. So they know the culture, they know the language, they're familiar with all the places that we are going to go. They work for EF Tours, and they're going to be our expert on this trip. We're going to see the equatorial line, which I'm totally nerding out about. We're going to be able to stand on 2 different hemispheres of the world at the same exact time. It's just my brain hates it and loves it at the same exact time. And I have some pictures of the weird museum that we're going to go visit, and I cannot wait. There's a lot of great architecture. South America, I think, is predominantly Catholic. So if you are of the Catholic faith, you may recognize some churches. We're going to visit the Church of La Compañía de Jesús. And as we're walking around, I'm sure that you'll see some of that architecture that is probably mostly religious in nature. Just beautiful, beautiful architecture and stonework and things like that. We're flying to Baltra Island on a little plane, I imagine. And then we're traveling by boat to Santa Cruz Island. And this is where the tortoises are. And I saw that in the chat, the giant tortoises. So if you're looking forward to seeing some big old tortoises, this trip is for you. We're going to visit the Charles Darwin Research Center as well, and that's all about what he did and why his travels to the Galapagos Islands are important and why they're protected. They're a key ecological system that are protected all over the world, and there's a reason why, and we're going to see it in person. So there you go. After that, we're going to travel by boat to Isabella Island, or Isabella, if you've watched Encanto recently, which I have and have stuck in my brain all the time. We're going to visit a pink flamingo habitat. Who knows why flamingos are pink? Anyone? Pink flamingos are pink because of what they eat, right? They eat cyanobacteria and shrimp, yep, little shrimps and things like that. And their plumage ends up being pink based on what they eat. Do you know what color flamingos are when they're born? They're white. They have not eaten all of those things yet. And so when they're born, well, I shouldn't say they're born, they're not born, they're hatched out of an egg. When they hatch, they're white and they're fluffy. They look like little cotton balls. And it takes a little while after they are hatched to get that pink color because they need to eat the things that make them pink. So I did see in the chat, someone said they were excited about going snorkeling. Me too. Pictures of the seals and, like I said, the marine iguanas eating the algae off the rocks and just whatever's in the water, I want to see it. There are sharks. I have done a little bit of research on this, on what's in the water down there. And there are sharks. They're not huge. They're not great white sharks. They're little black tipped reef sharks that swim around, and they're fairly used to tourists. I think when we go on this trip, you'll see that a lot of these animals are used to tourists, and they also don't care. They're not scared. They've never been hunted in their lives. And not that we're going to get close to them, but we're going to get a great view of them because they're not going to run away from us. So there are plenty of rules in place to keep us away from them and them away from us. But being this close to some of these animals is something that is just going to be a core memory that you're going to have for the rest of your life. We're going to boat over to Santa Cruz Island, swim in this canyon that's in that picture, which looks delightful. The Playa de los Almenes. I have to work on my Spanish, brush up a little bit before we go. I can see that those look like iguanas. I feel like this is going to be an iguana heavy trip. Not really sure. Fingers crossed. We're going to boat over to San Cristobal, hike. We're going to see sea turtles and sea snakes and sea sharks and all the things that are in the sea, explore the islands, and then fly back to Quito on day 7. When we get back to Quito, we are going to spend just a little bit more time. There's a day trip. There's some markets, beautiful goods and fruits and vegetables and delicious food in the local markets in Quito. The last part of our trip is visiting a waterfall in Cotacachi, which sounds delightful. And then we're gonna fly back home on day 9. If someone on the trip doesn't know how to swim, I believe I can look into it, but I imagine that you can wade and or they will provide life jackets for you. So it might be less, it's snorkeling, right? So you have the mask on and the snorkel, which you breathe out of. So you're on top of the water. So you're not, it's not scuba, you're not diving down into the water. You're just kind of floating on the top of it. And I guarantee that they will have life jackets while we're there for those folks that might be a little bit nervous about the water. And it's the ocean. If you've never been in the ocean before, it can be a little intimidating. So that's a really good question. I'm going to definitely double check though with our tour guide, our tour agent, just to make sure, but I can't imagine that they would not have life jackets. All right, let's see. Oh, Just some pictures, random pictures, pictures of Quito, some flamingos. Let me see if I can get some. Oh, they're popping up. There they are. San Cristobal. Okay, so this is the weird museum at the equatorial line, and I'm really excited about this because there's cool stuff there. There's a website. If you are like a nerd like me and you find this fascinating, you can just Google, Museum of Equatorial Line in Ecuador, and all these cool pictures and stuff will come up, and I'm super excited about that. Let's see, I'm checking the chat here. Anyone can come. You have to be a registered Girl Scout to come on this trip. Yes, adults are more than welcome to come on the trip with you. Girls can come as well if they are 12 years or older at the time. So you have to be 12 in order to go on this trip. I probably should have said that from the beginning, but I'm going to say it now because you reminded me. So girls have to be 12 at the time of the trip by July 7th or whatever, 2024, and adults are welcome. Thank you for reminding me of that. All right, let's see. Do I have more pictures? Probably. Oh, there's the animals. The one on the bottom left is my favorite tropical bird. Does anybody know what it is? They're called frigate birds. And that's a male frigate bird down there. And when they're trying to get a date with a lady frigate bird, they puff up their chest like that. And it's really cool. Dads can come too. Yep, I can see that in the chat. Yep, dads are welcome. We make accommodations for hotel rooms. That's all. So yes, dads are more than welcome to come, as long as they're a registered Girl Scout member. Keep that in mind. Yes, adults have to be registered Girl Scouts. Yep. Hey, who knew we were going to see penguins on this trip? We will definitely see penguins on this trip. These penguins are the only penguins that live north of the equator, which is really weird, because you would think, like you see those commercials with like penguins and polar bears hanging out, but that's not real. There are no penguins above the equatorial line. All penguin species live below the equator. These ones just happen to be stuck on the Galapagos Islands, which are above the equator just by a little bit. So we are going to see penguins. These are tropical penguins. I'm excited for that. We have penguins at the zoo in Syracuse, Humboldt penguins, which are generally located off the coast of Peru. So maybe we'll see some of those too. I'm just very excited. And there's my cool pal, the iguana. Look at his weird little face. I'm super excited. What animals are you most excited to see? Drop it in the chat if you have an idea of what you want to see. And in that picture with the little iguana, you can also see there's blue-footed boobies. And you would think to yourself, what? Those are real? Yeah, they totally are. We're going to see them. They're in the picture. I can't wait. I cannot wait. Yep, tortoises, iguanas, the finches, yep, which is the crux of Darwin's whole deal. Seals, penguins, lizards, flamingos, yes, absolutely. Giant tortoises, I'm excited for them because they get really old, which is weird. Reptiles in general are just like kind of my jam because they have a lot of weird like systemic things that are kind of cool going on with them, which I just find fascinating. So yeah, looks like we're all on the same page, and we are going to see all of those animals and probably more that we didn't know we were going to see, and then we're going to see them, and it's going to be amazing. All right, so here's, does anyone have any questions? If you have any questions about any of this stuff, like I said, drop it in the chat. But let's talk logistics now, real quick, because I can see that I've been talking too much about animals and not enough about logistics. So mark your calendars. We have requested a departure date of July 10th, 2024. And if you look at this screen, you can see that there's a bit of a buffer. So the earliest departure would be Saturday, July 6th. The latest return would be July 22nd. But this is a 9-day tour, so we should theoretically be back on July 19th. Now, the reason that there's a buffer is because EF Tours is constantly trying to get us the best flights. They're booking hotel rooms for us, and none of those things can be booked right now. So they cannot confirm with anyone that we could actually go there on the 10th of July in 2024. So as we get closer to the date of the trip, they will confirm this date with us. I can tell you that Italy and Greece, we found out last month, 3 months prior to the trip. We finally had our dates and our flights confirmed, and it was exactly what we requested. So if you are planning on going on this trip, just make sure that you have a little bit of a buffer on either end. And hopefully, fingers crossed it won't be, but just in case, should you test positive for COVID while we're in this country, if that's still a thing, you will have to quarantine. So don't overbook yourself during the summertime. If you want to go on this trip with us, make sure that you build in a little time on either end, just in case. EF is really great though. They've been awesome with trying to do everything that we've requested. So what's included? Airfare, round trip airfare, safe quality hotel rooms. Typically how this happens is girls will have their choice. You can room, you're usually typically rooming with 3 or 4 other girls on this trip. And it's typically, the rooms are included with twin size beds. Sometimes when I went to Paris, there was a pull-out couch, which was actually more comfortable than the bed, because the bed was actually 2 twin beds smushed together. So I was like, yeah, pull-out couch was fantastic. So they are putting us in decent hotels. I need to tell you, however, that this is a trip to the tropics. So there's going to be lizards probably in your hotel room. There's likely to be bugs. There may be some spiders. You're probably going to see bats at night, which is amazing. So I just want to make sure that you know that this is not going to be like going to France, where there's no lizards and not a lot of bats and no spiders. I didn't see any of that stuff when I was in Paris. You will see it here. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Coming to South America is a little bit more rustic than some of the European tours that go. And Japan, for example, next summer, Japan is not going to be as lizardy as this trip is probably going to be. So there you go. Breakfast and dinner daily are included. So breakfast is typically like light continental, muffins and fruits and coffee and things like that. Excuse me. And then dinner is pre-planned for us. So we will go to a restaurant. What happened when we went to Paris is we went to a restaurant and they had a menu already for us. So we didn't choose the food that we ate. They gave us the food and it was delicious. In South America, I've been assured that a lot of it is rice, beans, and chicken. So they're not going to give you anything crazy or weird. One of my friends went to Ecuador on a personal vacation and she ate guinea pigs. So they're not going to be serving guinea pigs to you, I don't think. You certainly can eat one, and I plan on eating one during lunch because lunch is on our own. So at lunchtime, they kind of set us free and we can do what we want. We can eat what we want. There's a little bit of free time during lunch. And that's when you can try some of those crazy things like guinea pig, if you so choose. And don't worry, I'll tell you exactly why eating guinea pig is not a bad thing later on after we've all enrolled in this. It's pretty cool, actually. They're really sustainable. And so there's meals. Full-time professional tour director, we already talked about that. Any on-tour transportation, so the little boats and the planes that we may be taking to these islands back and forth, that's all included. Educational itinerary, so that's, the Darwin station, anything that really involves the ecosystem that we're going to be visiting, guided tours, activities, etc. is included. 24-hour emergency services are included as well. So that might be, if somebody gets really sick on the trip and has to get flown home prior to the trip ending, that could be part of this 24-hour emergency services. Traveler support resources. Anytime I call EF or email my representative, they're right there and they get back to me that day. They're really good with questions and concerns and that sort of thing. Tour donation page. I really like this around Christmas time or Hanukkah time or Easter, Passover, any of those holidays that your family celebrates. You have your own personal donation page. So I know that I had a couple of kiddos headed to Japan next summer, and this past Christmas, they sent out links to their own donation page, and they got over 1,000 people that donated, $1,000 in donations instead of Christmas presents, which is amazing. I'm crossing my fingers and hoping for the day where I can get my children experiences and not Legos anymore. So they're still a little bit too young now, but the day will come. So You can use your tour donation page for things like that. And then those are all the other things that I talked about, you know, the college stuff and educational rewards and things like that. So the things that we are responsible for personally, getting your own passport, and any baggage fees. This trip, though, I'm going to tell you, I am going to require only carry-on luggage, no checked bags for this trip. That will be a requirement. So I want you to know that ahead of time. And this is because if your bag gets lost, your checked bag gets lost, you may not get it back. And it'll meet you back in Syracuse, New York, 10 days later, and you won't be prepared for this trip. Additionally, I have seen the boats that we are going to be traveling on from island to island to island. They are not big. So we don't want to have a whole lot of luggage that we're carrying around with us. It's just going to be a big pain. And we are going to be swimming. We're going to be in the water. We're going to be in 90-degree, 100% humidity weather. So you're not packing long sleeve shirts and jeans and socks. You're packing bathing suits and coveralls and a whole bunch of sunblock. Okay, so we'll talk about that after everyone is enrolled and how to pack appropriately for this type of trip. Spending money. So if we go to places like the local markets and you see things that you want to bring home, that would be spending money. And they typically say between $15 and $20 per day. I think that's a lot, but they just want you to be, you know, better safe than sorry. Lunches and snacks, and that's typically about $8 to $10 a day as well, depending on where you go. Tips, which are tips for the tour guide, any local folks that we encounter, bus drivers, boat drivers, that kind of thing. And they typically say to allow 10 bucks a day for that sort of thing too. And then any college credit that you want, you would be responsible for that too. So any questions on what's included, things that we have to cover, etc.? So cash, I believe cash is preferred in the Galapagos only because it is so remote. There are not ATMs in a lot of the places that we're going. I haven't really super looked into it, but I know the folks that are going to Costa Rica this summer, the US dollar is fine. They don't have to exchange any money. They don't have to exchange any money. They're just going to use US dollars and it will be fine. I think it's probably going to be the same for Ecuador and the Galapagos, but I don't think the ATMs are going to be readily accessible unless we're in Quito. So just keep that in mind. Laundry facilities, negatory. There will not be laundry facilities. So we will definitely talk about that on what to pack. They have travel laundry things that you can pack with you. Typically it's like a dryer sheet, but it's detergent and a clothesline and a couple of pins, and you can wash out your unmentionables and dry them up and wear them the next day. We're gonna do a whole thing on packing. Don't worry, fear not, my friends. I know it seems daunting, but this is all about traveling light and having the experience. I'm uncertain about vaccines, malaria protection, that kind of thing. I'm not really sure. I'd have to ask our EF tour person prior to us going. So let me see here. Any other questions regarding any of this in the chat that I can answer? Are the bats and lizards going to be in our room? No bats. The bats will not be in your room. I think probably the lizards might be, but they're going to be on the ceiling and they're not going to fall on you because they don't like people. So I don't worry about the lizards. Don't focus on it. I just wanted to throw it out there maybe so that you could have these 2 years to get comfortable with that. Okay. They're small. The lizards are very small. They're not, it's not like an iguana is going to fall on you or any lizard, really. They're not falling on you. Forget I said that. We're going to get to cost in just a few minutes here and some of the money stuff too. So let me just advance my slide. Yeah, gecko size. That's exactly right. And with the sticky fingers too. So they're like stuck on things. All right, making it happen. Here's your question about cost. There are flexible payment options. So I got to move all these things around on my screen here. So thinking about from today to the trip, if you were to pay into this bi-weekly, it would be $94 every 2 weeks. After your $95 deposit, we do require a $95 deposit to save your spot. So just keep that in mind. The next option here would be monthly. So $189 per month. The trip in full costs $4,815, which includes that $95 deposit. There are manual payment options, but they do have some fees associated with them. And I know that a couple of folks going on trips this summer got caught up where they forgot to make it and they were charged a fee, like a processing fee. So they don't necessarily recommend the manual payment, and you can just set it and forget it, you know, if you're doing one of these automatic payment options here. Oops, so I'm sorry, the adult price on this is $5,200, no, $5,265, a little bit more for adults. Valid for risk-free enrollment period, which means that you'll be able to cancel. There's a date that they set that you can cancel and get everything back in full. Let's see, 5265, yes, okay. Oh, so the enrollment window for this trip is open. It's open until probably early 2024. However, if you do decide that, yes, you are absolutely going on this trip, there's no question about it, I'm going to make it happen. If you enroll by the end of May, you will receive a $200 discount off of the total price of your trip. Okay, so that would make it $90 biweekly, $181 monthly, or $46.15 in full. And for adults, that's $5,065. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Why are there so many things to click? What is happening here? Okay, there we go. So, oh no, please hold. Wait a minute. Previous. Okay. So there are additional opportunities to fund your travel. Global Empowerment Scholarship. We can submit an application for a scholarship. GSUSA also has scholarships that they give out for things like this. And then I know that NYPENN is looking into financial aid specifically for international trips as well. I'm not really sure what that's going to look like right now, but I do know that we have money in the budget to award folks that may need help with this trip, okay? You do have a customizable tour donation page, as I mentioned. You know, it's your birthday and you don't want, you know, stuffed animals and Legos anymore. You want to go to the Galapagos. So maybe now you send this customizable donation page out to your friends and family, anyone that might want to give you a gift, and say, no gifts, only donations. And that would be a great way to raise money. And then your early enrollment discount. Like I said, you get $200 off immediately if you enroll by the end of the month. All right, is this it? Is this the end? I think it is. Holy cow. Oh, it's 7:39. I'm doing pretty good. So if you enroll by tomorrow right around midnight, you are also entered to win an additional $100 off. So that would be $300 total if the raffle goes your way. So just keep that in mind. There's the enrollment there, eftours.com, and that number afterwards is the tour number that you would enter in if you want to see the itinerary, any information. There's also things on there about physical requirements. For example, the tour that I'm taking to Italy and Greece, it's like a medium level tour, and we are going to be expected to walk between 7 and 9 miles a day on this trip. So it's kind of like intense if you're not active. I've been telling my folks to just start walking, just walk, because that's all we're going to be doing on this trip. This trip that the Galapagos trip that we're taking, I don't necessarily recall what level it is. I don't think it was somewhere between like easy and medium, only because the terrain's not that crazy. It's not that steep. There is water, so you will be swimming. Keep in mind that we are traveling on boats, so I don't have a lot of experience on like boats on the ocean. So there could be the potential for motion sickness, that kind of thing. So keep that in mind as well. But if you're cool with that, this trip could be for you. But that's why they make things like Dramamine, right? I'm going to bring a lot of it probably on this trip. So we'll be well prepared for that sort of thing. So if you have any questions or anything that I can't answer tonight, feel free to call Traveler Support. They're awesome. They'll answer any questions that you might have about this trip. It might be important for you to know when the cutoffs would be. So, you know, if you pay for this trip and you suddenly something happens, you know, you lose your job or you have to move or or you get sick, any number of things, you'll want to know what the cutoff date for refund is. And if it ends up being past that, you can get credits. You'll get trip credits to a different trip. You can sell your credits to another person that's going on this trip so that you don't lose your money, and that'll get credited to the next person. There's a bunch of different ways to sort of navigate the money aspect of this trip, because we do know that it's expensive. It takes thought and preparation for a trip like this. So let me look in my chat here. I can see 13 chats popping up. Do I do this often? Do I come here often? So I'm going on my first one this summer. So by the time we get to the Galapagos, the answer to that will be yes. But right now, no. But it's okay, because you know what? I'm going to just keep practicing until I don't anymore. But hopefully, I'm just going to keep bringing girls to awesome places around the world. So we'll see. Enrollment for the Japan trip is not over. Japan is traveling in 2023. Right now, we're working on a wait list. It does take $95 to reserve a spot on a wait list. If you don't clear the wait list, you get that $95 back. I recommend getting on wait lists because people drop out. When I started the Italy-Greece trip, granted it was during COVID and we had to postpone it, there were 30 people signed up. Right now I'm down to 16. So people will drop out as we get closer to the trip. I've already had 5 people drop out of Japan, and there were folks on the wait list that I just filled with. Okay, so I can send out information on the Japan trip. I think there's going to be a follow-up email to this. That's why they wanted you to sign in there. So I can send out that link to you folks tomorrow. All right, you have to be 12 years old to travel. So you have to be 12 by July 10th or whatever the travel date is, 2024. So keep that in mind, okay? Let's see, I'm gonna just bring up my chat into a bigger box here so I can see. Yep, I'm gonna go back to the cost page in just a second here. Bring your Dramamine, yeah, it's always a good idea. All enrollment does not end on May 31st. It is just the $200 discounted enrollment that ends on May 31st. Enrollment will go up until probably 6 months or so before the trip. That is per person. Yep, so that slide there, let me see if I can, I'm gonna bring this back up here. Hold on. Previous. So this is the one if you sign up prior to the date, the deadline, May 31st. But if you don't end up doing that, just add $200 onto this cost here. So I think you can see that still. Let me get back in my chat. So as I mentioned, all enrollment is over as we get closer to the trip. It's only the $200 discount enrollment that's over on 531. The parents have to be registered before they go. So if you want to wait till member year 2022, no, 2020, you would have to register in the year starting October 2023. Yeah, so that it carries over to the summer of 2024. We probably request that we fly out of Syracuse just because it's very central to everyone. We cannot fly out of multiple airports. We can only fly out of one airport. So for example, for Italy and Greece, we're flying out of Syracuse to JFK. We have a little bit of a layover, and then we're flying direct from JFK to Rome. And the time's not terrible. So you do not have to live in the NYPENN area at the time of the trip. That's a great question. However, we would have to chat with EF Tours about where you would fly from and how we would meet you and the logistics of that. So just keep that in mind. The girls should be 12 in August and still go. They've got to be 12 on the trip. They've got to be 12 on the trip. That is an EF Tours guideline, not mine. All right, let's see. Cost page, enrollment. What else? How many people are on the tour? I believe that this tour has a max of 45 people. And it's somewhere between 40 and 45. Right now I have 18 people signed up. So we're at the halfway point. So just keep that in mind. We do not divide into groups for meals and activities. Although I believe we'll probably have to divide up when we go on the boats because they're not very big. So there will be multiple boats, but for meals and activities and tours and things like that, we'll all stay as a big group. Girls' room with girls, adults cannot room with girls, even if it's your own family. So adults can upgrade. I have upgraded to a single room. It's not that much more. I think it's like 30 bucks a night or something. Only because I snore. And I know I'm going to want to hit my bed as soon as I finish each day on this tour. So I did upgrade to a single room, and you can do that as well. But girls and adults are not allowed to sleep in the same room. So girls will sleep with the girls, and you get to decide that, prior to the trip or on the trip. Even if you are rooming with someone and you're like, wow, their feet stink and I don't want to be with them anymore, you can switch it up. Adults, I'm going to pre-assign you. So I'll ask at some point before the trip, who do you want to room with? Do you know anyone else on the trip? Do you not care? Or do you want to upgrade to a single room? And I'll do that all before the trip happens. So that's how that would work. We're back into the lizards questions here. The girls are responsible for holding all of their money. So I typically, as the lead chaperone, the group leader, I will hold like tip money. I will collect that before the trip, actually, because like my Italy-Greece trip, I'm looking at probably 1,800 euro in tips. And so I'll take that money before the trip and I will split it up between chaperones so that if I get pickpocketed or robbed on the street, it's not all of it. It's only, an eighth of it or a sixth of it or whatever. So I'm hoping to be able to split it up between chaperones just for liability's sake. So, but any spending money and things like that, yes, girls would be responsible to hold on to, which is why I recommend / mandate, at least for Italy and Greece, a money belt. But we will talk about what that might look like as we get closer to this trip, because it's going to be hot and humid, and you might be in a bathing suit. So I'm not really sure how a money belt is going to help you. So let's see. Bats, lizards, bugs, lizards. Fathers can go, absolutely. We already talked about that. And then let me see, double check the trip limit. Got it. I don't know. There were supposed to be 100 people on this call. There's only 32 right now. So I am uncertain about how quickly it will fill. Let me get out of this real quick here, and I'm going to check my enrollment page. I'll log into my. Why won't you go away? Okay. Hi, how's everybody doing? I'm happy to see your faces. Hello. Let me log into my EF Tours account really quickly. EFTours.com. All right. Charting the Galapagos. As I mentioned, there are 18 travelers going right now, and I believe the limit is 40. Man, that's a really good question that I really should have asked prior to coming into this. I think it's 40. So there are 22 spaces right now to fill. But I'm also going to email my person, Audra, real quick right now and just see what she says. Audra. Yeah, maybe the next 20 seconds, she'll get back to me. Okay. Any other questions or issues? Oh, you know what I'm going to do since I'm in EF Tours right now? I'm going to get the information for the Japan trip. I know a bunch of you all were asking about that. So let me just get the link for that trip as well so that you can explore in there. The Japan trip, by comparison, has 55 people traveling. And so for that trip, we are definitely going to be splitting up into 2 separate like buses or groups because the 55 of us cannot all go together. This Galapagos trip, I think just because of the nature of the trip and where, the people and the accommodations, it's going to be less. I believe. Oops, I'm sorry, Christy V. I definitely just private messaged you that, which I did not mean to do. Here you go. There's the Japan trip there. So let me see, 22 spaces left for girls and adults. Yes, so that is 22 spaces for just any human that wants to go on this trip. Payment in full will be required, I think it's required 110 days before, 110 days before the trip is like the last cutoff date where like refunds are not good anymore and like you're gonna lose money at that point. I think the final payment is due 30 days prior to the trip. So you would have to like June 10th or something to get that in. Any other questions? Okay. So if you have any questions, feel free to use that. I'm not sure if you got that. Let me see if I can bring it up one more time. Share my screen. Did you all get it? Let me see. Why? Is this the part where the meeting goes off the rails? No, it's just where I have so many tabs open. I can't even. All right, hold on. There it is. So that's the enrollment page there, traveler support. You can go ahead and call them if you need anything. And then that rb.gy/momwhore, that is the trip question form. So your sign-in form, if you are here and you want more information or you have questions, definitely use that. And EF Tours will be following up with you tomorrow, actually. I'm sorry, you could not. Okay, another question in the chat. The total cost of Japan. Let me see. I'm still sharing my screen with you all, huh? Hold on one second here. So if you are good to go, I want to thank you all for coming on tonight and learning a little bit more about the Galapagos. Like I said, I am a science nerd and I cannot wait to see these animals in person, like in the wild. I mean, I've seen a penguin at the zoo, but it's just totally different than seeing them in the wild. And just being where it all started, right? Where Darwin made all these discoveries and, you know, field journals, and just, it's just going to be awesome. So join me. It's going to be fantastic. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. So I'm going to call this meeting to a close, and it's been recorded. So I think the recording might be sent out. If you want the recording, you can always email me and let me know. Let's see. lschmidt@gsnypen.org is my email address. gsnypen.org. Yep, there it is in the chat. If you have any questions that I can answer for you, you can pay as you earn it, but that would be manual. So you'd have to just look into that payment plan. That's totally possible. Yep, absolutely. So there's lots of different ways to get it done. Any other questions? Anything I can answer for you tonight? You can unmute yourself as well if you want to, but otherwise, thank you. And I hope to see you in the Galapagos. I'm really looking forward to this trip, and I hope you all are too. Thanks for coming. Thank you, everybody. All right, I don't see any other questions popping up, so I'm going to end meeting for all. Thank you very much, and have a great night, everybody. Bye. Thank you. See you in the Galapagos.